One of the biggest ones is Perfect Dark. Now, Perfect Dark, for those of you guys who missed it, Perfect Dark is that game that was being remade for modern audiences. It's the one where my thumbnail's jaw keeps getting bigger and bigger every video I make. This particular game, when it was announced, obviously got a lot of hate because of the way that Joanna was designed, and she looked very modern jaw. And come to find out that this game was canceled, and then after the game was canceled, of all people, Ethan Gack, which, by the way, don't you guys find it weird? It's really not weird because I know why they're doing it, but don't you find it weird that every journalist that references this story and this rumor refuses to name the fact that Ethan Gack was the one that said it? They're all like, oh, a prominent journalist has informed...
Full disclosure, I did not notice that, but now I'm going to look for it. That's hysterical.
I'll bring up one of the articles that I had. I did a video on it because I talked about it. I'm like, it's interesting. Like, you guys won't actually reference his name because you don't want people to know that it was a shill journalist for all intents and purposes that's dropping something like that. Like, that's not something I expected Gack to say. You know, maybe Schreier, you know, but not Ethan Gack, bro. Ethan Gack just coming out with that shit is crazy. But in any case,
what?
But in any case, so Ethan Gack ended up dropping that bit of news. And what did he drop? Well, apparently Perfect Dark, the entire trailer that we saw years ago when it was first announced, was all fake. The entire thing was fake. The entire thing was scripted. And normally this would not be a big deal, but the only problem is that it was advertised as in-game footage and cinematics. Now, some people are saying, well, the majority might be cinematics. Sure, maybe. But you're coping. You're coping because they said that it was gameplay. And now we're coming out and finding out that Ethan Gack says it was fake. So then people are like, well, where's the proof? Ethan Gack could be lying. And you're absolutely right. Kotaku could be lying. They do it all the time. But one of the people who actually worked on the game recently came out and said that it was a vertical slice demo, that what you saw in the trailer, you could kind of do if you stuck to it. But, you know, there was some fakery in there. And by him saying there was some fakery in there leads me to believe that there's some damage control and that the whole thing was fucking fake. So, what are we thinking about this Perfect Dark thing, man?
I'm shocked it's canceled. It's a big name IP that, like, Xbox. I mean, they launched the 360 on Perfect Dark Zero, and people didn't like love it, but it's still a big name for Xbox. I can't believe they canceled it. But that, I mean, I'm still baffled with the whole thing. It blows my mind.
Is Perfect Dark as good as everybody thinks it is, or do we have some sort of like nostalgia with it? Because let's be honest, even if you think about retrospectives and we're looking back at Rare's games, do people care more about GoldenEye or Perfect Dark? And I think GoldenEye is by far,
of course, people care more
the bigger
about
one. So I honestly never believed that once Rare was not able to make the first Perfect Dark again, Perfect Dark has been dead for 20 years. I think Perfect Dark has been irrelevant for a long time. People may not like that, but I think it's true.
You're not wrong. It's just it's still it's a name brand that Xbox, longtime Xbox fans and N64 fans will remember. So like that was supposed to be a big title at a time when we haven't gotten any Gears of War. Fable is in development hell. It's like, oh, we're bringing back Perfect Dark. It's like, oh wow, really? Like that's a big name.
I think the studio that took one of the greatest FPSs of all time and ran it into the ground multiple times in Halo, you could never trust them to make a big FPS again. Like there's just no hope. Facts. If you can't do Halo, you're not going to do Perfect Dark.
I don't know about that.
It's just not going to work. I just don't think it was ever going to work. I didn't trust Microsoft to be able to pull that off. So I'm just not surprised by it, in my opinion. And the coalition's been MIA with Gears of War as well. And we can argue that the newer Gears games are far superior to anything that 343 did with Halo, even if they're not as good as the first, Gears games, the first three. But
I don't want to cut off Atreus. I know he's trying to say something, but go ahead, Atreus.
I forgot what I was going to say. You got it.
So by all accounts, people are saying that Xbox never announced a release date for this game, but by all accounts, it was going to be widely discussed sometime in 2026. So to say I was shocked that this was canceled is the understatement of the century, because we all know these games typically take somewhere between 4 and 10 years to make. Usually it's around 5, 6 on the higher end for a AAA experience, which means this game has been in development for a long time. They showcased it a couple times. They talked about in-game footage. This came from a reputable, quote unquote, reputable company of Microsoft, a game developer, a Rare that people know and trust. And this game was far along in expectation that it was going to be coming out sometime in 2026, which is like 12 months from right now, we'll say. There's got to be so much story behind the scenes of like, what the hell were they actually doing? And I think that will come out in time. We already, like you said, Hypno, already have some leaks of people saying that it was fake. I feel like there's a massive story here, because this might turn into something even bigger as time goes on, because I can't believe this actually happened.
So I was a little shocked that the game got canceled, to be fair. I will say that I wasn't shocked about the gameplay being potentially faked, which I'm going to bring up the article of the interview. Well, not the interview, but the person on Blue Sky, because, of course, who worked on the game and did level design and all this stuff, basically admitting that it was fake. That one didn't shock me, because, and it just makes me think of, The Witcher and everything that's happening right now with the tech demos and all that. Every time we get tech demos, is always bullshit. It's almost never what they show from these high profile studios, and it's because they spend all this time trying to convince people that it's going to be XYZ, but it's more so convincing investors that it's going to look like that, and then hoping that they get enough money to ride through the development and then maybe make that. But there's always some sort of sacrifice that has to be made, and it fucking sucks. Because it sucks for the consumer, because they're lying to people, and this is why, like, when I see people shill hard for tech demos, I have to question your intelligence a lot, because I look at you and I'm like, you really shilling for this shit? Because how many times do we need to see that it's never what it shows? Like, how many times do we need to see that before you realize, okay, maybe you should not believe the tech demo and wait for actual gameplay? But no way you did that, bro. There's no way you did that, bro. There ain't no way. Bella Ramsey, bro. Seriously, Wizard, and the zoom in too on top, bro. I can't even. I lost my train of thought, man. Anyway, the point is, stop believing these tech demos. They're completely full of shit. And at this point, I really wonder what's going to come of this, because this is like, so, okay, let me formulate this. We've had Perfect Dark was in development. How long? 6 years?
It was announced in 2020, I believe.
But they were probably working on it before that. You imagine, right?
Yeah, it's probably 5.
I think it was 7 years. They said.
Yep.
So 7 years for that. Nothing to show for it other than a bullshit fucking trailer. Probably spent
the reboot was
over $100 million easy on it.
It was announced in the Game Awards December 2020.
Holy shit! Wow.
Which
Okay,
means
so
that it was in development even before then.
Right. And of course, like all these games that came from 2020 or were developed around the 2020 time, almost all of them have some modern audience bullshit in it, because it was the hype thing to do back then. Mm-hmm. And all these games now that were developed around that time that never made it out of the development cycles are all getting canceled. And it's because these investors have to know that the market has shifted. Even if it's slightly, you got to know it's shifted. So if these games that were developed for a mindset in 2020, or even before that, but anyway, they were developed for the mindset of 2020, 2021, 2022. They're not even nowhere near done in 2025. You're gonna release your shit in 2030? Like, well, after 4 years of fucking Trump and mindsets completely changed.
I thought you were going a different direction with that, which I was gonna say that the investors have got to be like, if this is a game that is a woke slop fest pandering to a modern audience that doesn't exist, they got to see that behind the scenes, and they got to make the call of, do we redo the whole story because clearly this is completely DEI injected, or do we just cancel the game?
Well, that's where I was going to go with it, because at this point, you have to make the call. So what I was saying is, at this point, it's 2025. Mindsets have shifted. You spend all this money, over 100 million easy, probably more on this game. I gotta imagine, considering Xbox does spend a lot of money on their games. Sometimes way too much. I mean, fucking South to Midnight. South to Midnight was what? 40 million, 30 million, something like that. Like something insane.
It's stop motion, so it kind of makes sense. That's a lot of work you got to put into it.
Think about the amount of money that is for a game that's like, how many hours is that game? It's ridiculous. No multiplayer, no nothing. Anyway, so they do spend a lot of money on their games. This game was easily over 100 million, no doubt, for the amount of time, probably more than that.
Remember, it was quadruple A, so I'm thinking the budget is
300 million.
Yeah, 300 million minimum.
So at this point now, you got to ask the question, like, what's the point? You know, if the game is not even out of pre-production, just cancel this shit. Take the tax write-off. It's worth more as a tax write-off. Just cancel it and move on. And that's unfortunately happening for a lot of projects that were around that time.
How far along the game was, and if there is like going to be lost media of this game, that what could have been like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, people looking back at like, how far along was that game? I do wonder.
I don't know, bro. But
it couldn't have been that far along if they had to fake a demo.
Good point, but damn, game's been in development over 5 years. It couldn't be that far along.
Well, we also knew with Dragon Age they was in development for about 4 or 5 years, and there wasn't nothing done.
Right. Actually, I think Atreus, it was 6 to 7 years there was nothing done, and then because they said that Dragon Age the Veilguard, the iteration that we played, was formulated in 3 years.
That was the 10-year one.
Yeah, that was the 3-year one. Yep.
Yeah, there was
Red Wolf got scrapped.
10 years total development time for that game.
Yep, slightly over, but yeah.
What we saw was only 3 years of work. They scrapped twice what the storyline and project was beforehand. It was supposed to be
it was supposed to be live service, wasn't it? Too.
Yeah, live service and all that.
Yeah.
Scrapped
that was the second iteration, live service. The first one was something I don't even know. I don't remember.
But I think that's kind of what we're getting into right now in the weeds, which is actually a really important question and statement to bring up. Is the game development time is taking so long that the market is the ground that they walk on is shifting underneath them while they're creating a game. And it's like, what you were developing for is no longer something that people care about anymore.
That's a really good point.
So check this out, guys. Hold on really quick. So this is 200% draw. Okay. Wait, 200% draw. That's the one you guys saw, right?
That's funny as hell.
So hold on. This is 400% draw. You ready for this? 400% draw. This shit's getting crazy. This is gonna be my next thumbnail if I gotta make another Perfect Dark video. And then the one after that is gonna be 1,000% draw. And we're gonna keep going until the whole fucking screen is draw. Yeah, it's gonna be wild.
Turn this into the Acolyte. Just keep talking about it.
What are you using to make this? Are you using
this ChatGPT?
Oh,
yeah, it's great for making like thumbnails of nonsense like this. So I have it make a character and then I design my own thumbnail. Smart stuff. I can't wait for 1,000% draw. So no, but seriously, so and like this Perfect Dark situation, this is the culmination in all of this, and we're going to talk about the other cancellations. We got ZeniMax canceling an MMO, fucking Bethesda Softworks. Yeah, Bethesda Softworks pulling out of publishing for 2 different games, which, by the way, resulted in the closure of that studio that they pulled out from, which we'll get into. Because when I initially talked about it, that didn't happen. They had laid people off and said they were going to try to pull it together. And then the next day, they're like, yeah, no, we're just closing this shit down. So
well done.
Bethesda Softworks literally killed the studio, which, well, anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're going to talk about it. Perfect Dark is a culmination of all of these games recently that have gotten canceled. I mean, Wonder Woman is another example. 4 years of development, over $100 million, nothing to show for it. Fucking Black Panther, over 3.5 years of development, over $100 million, nothing to show for it. It's crazy. And at this point, this is why I think we are seeing such a drastic hit that is happening. I think I have this layoff tracker. Let me bring it up to really kind of give you an idea just how fucking wild this is. So if you look at this layoff tracker, very important stuff. Romero just got added. That's a studio we're going to talk about. It's crazy, man. Just in this month alone, from the 2nd, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
and we're on
6,
the
7,
5th right
8.
now. That's 3 days.
Yeah. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 studios in 2 days of this month, either getting layoffs or closing down.
Wow.
What the fuck, bro?
And we wish them well.
Do we? I don't know about that.
Do we?
No, this is crazy, bro. This is crazy. 14 studios in 2 days, in just 1 month. And right before the summer really hit. Right? Like it's just crazy shit. I think we are seeing a literal gaming crash happen before our eyes in a way that's a little bit different from what it was before. But I do think it's safe to call it this at this point, a gaming crash, because last year was 24,000 some odd people lost their jobs. A lot of studios closed down. This year, we are at this number says 4,000, but keep in mind, a ton of question marks on here. It's definitely well over 15,000 at this point because Microsoft's on here, Xbox, etc. So, and it's all question marks because you don't have an exact number. So, we are at probably 2/3 of the way of what 2024 was, and we're only halfway through the year. Combined,
Also,
I was gonna say combined, we're over 40,000 layoffs in 2 years. I think it's safe to say this is a gaming crash, at least from a AAA standpoint. But there have been some indie studios that have gotten hit also. So
I don't know if it's a gaming crash. I think the gaming industry is on a weight loss journey. Okay, I think a lot of people got fat off of the pandemic, and everybody was spending money frivolously, hiring all of these morons and stuff like that. And now they on a Lizzo brand weight loss journey. And all you seeing is that all of the weight that they're losing is the fat that they're cutting off. That's what I think it is.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Because that's a good point. The reason why I disagree is because I don't think this is a weight loss journey, because the weight loss journey means that you are taking the initiative to cut that weight, right? You're taking the initiative to lose that weight. Whereas the gaming industry, if the subsidization was still there, I don't think they would cut. I think they would still keep going. I think what happened in 2025 especially was that the subsidization is not there anymore, which is why we're seeing such a drastic hit in half the amount of time compared to last year.
Well, I'm looking at it like I just saw Microsoft say, yeah, like we firing all of y'all, but I don't want y'all to get the wrong idea. We having not record, but we're doing well. We're doing pretty well. We're gonna fire y'all anyway, but we're doing pretty well. And then when you look at the biggest games of the last 2 years, they've all been made by like smaller studios. Like when you think about not the most profitable, but the biggest games that have gotten the biggest reputation or whatever the case may be. We talking Black Myth Wukong, Stellar Blade, Hell Divers, fucking Sandfall Games just delivered what I think is the game of the year with 30 people. And then, you look around, if you're Microsoft, if you're whomever, EA, Activision, you're looking around, it's like, motherfucker, we got 1,000 of y'all working in this goddamn office. We got to deal with bullshit every day. Such and such is getting reported to HR every other day. My manager is fucking my janitor. I gotta get rid of this shit.
What the fuck?
All I see is a bunch of liabilities.
That escalated quickly.
Real quickly.
I kind of agree with that though, because there's another point in there, and it's debatable, of course. Game development takes too long. And that's something that really needs to be discussed at the corporate level. Game development takes too long. So to play on Atreus's point, like this really could be a trimming the fat in these organizations. If it's already going to take so long to make these games, they're going to cost $100 million to make. Why are we paying for all these extra people when we're making record profits?
Exactly. Yeah. And when you look at it, it's like, it's not, when you said it takes too long to develop, those people stay on the payroll, whether you putting out a game or not. Right. So like, if you plan for a game to only take 4, 5, or 6 years, and then you look up and you're 8, 9 years into the development process, you still had to pay those people. So it's like you already over budget on what you was going to pay everybody anyway. And like you said, I'm looking around and I'm seeing people deliver like games that are like Expedition 33 is better than anything Xbox has put out since 360. That's an insult, man. Because if you're the CEO of Microsoft, like, what the fuck are we doing? What the fuck are we doing? Like we can't put shit out.
You definitely you hit the nail on the head, because all the games that you mentioned were all AA or less with shorter development times than pretty much all AAA games. And the ROI on those games were massive, right? So the investments on those games, I mean, every single one of the games you mentioned had a budget less than 100 million, with the exception of maybe Helldivers. I think Helldivers was higher than that. But quote me if I'm wrong, let me know. But Expedition obviously had low budget, fairly low budget. What'd you call it? What other game did you mention? Oh, Black Myth Wukong, Stellar Blade, low budgets because they were Asian made.
Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know what the budget was on that, but I don't think Larian Studios was that big, was it? I don't know.
Well, I know when it came to Stellar Blade and Black Myth Wukong, super low budgets because they were Asian made. So those studios, conversion rates and everything. Plus, Asian studios, they do not fuck around, bro. Like they come up with an idea, they come up with a scope, and they see it through. And there's very little like fuck around, very little like Western. Oh, I'm gonna spend 6 hours on my 8-hour day going to Starbucks and go into my fucking what do they call that? My safe space room or whatever Twitter had at the time.
Oh my god!
And let me sit in a room of soundproof glass and pretend like I'm working when I'm really on YouTube all day. Like they don't got that shit, bro. It's straight to the point, which is why the development times are much shorter and their budgets are way shorter. And when they make money, they end up they spread it out to people. Stellar Blade Studio made so much money, they gave them all bonuses. They gave them fucking PS5s. Everybody's happy,
Yep. I wonder what the budget was for Elden Ring.
Let's find out.
I'm not sure. I don't remember actually.
If that was less than $200 million, because I don't think like you think
on the
about
high end,
like,
it's 220. On the high end, it's between 150 and 220, according to. Let me see.
They more than made their budget back.
Yeah, they did. But I'm just thinking about that. When you think about like how much money did they put into Redfall? You know what I'm saying? How much money did they put into Starfield? Now, Starfield, I think Starfield definitely made his money back. But like when you think about stuff like that,
definitely.
I mean, they definitely did. They definitely did.
Yeah, I was going to say, they had. It was a rough launch.
Because there was a lot of marketing in that game, a lot of money into marketing.
I will say Starfield 2, that's going to be a little sus because again, Starfield was sold off an idea and sold off the goodwill. Well, I can't even say goodwill, but like basically sold off of the idea of like an Elder Scrolls in space kind of a thing, right? So people who usually buy games from Bethesda were super hyped, right? And they were all excited for it. And they're like, oh man, a massive fucking, open world space adventure, all that shit. And they didn't get that. I mean,
loading screen simulator.
Yeah, it's just that's literally what they got. So I don't think a sequel would do anywhere near as good. I think the first one definitely sold off of the idea rather than the product itself. But this is just the way it goes, man. I think that they are waking up to the fact that AAA, doesn't necessarily have to be the way it is. You don't got to spend $400 million on a fucking project just to make 20 million and you got to struggle bust your way through to the top.
But that's also on the developers as well, because it's when you are a small studio, it's easy to come in and think creative first. Like, and so you're minimizing everything. How much can I get out of what we have? But when you work for a Microsoft, like EA, or Activision, you're not thinking about how you can make the best possible with what you got. You're thinking about all the resources you got. So you're probably telling these companies, hey, we need a $300 million budget when you really don't. So
it's also easier to manage a smaller studio. Like
here's what's really funny.
Keep people in line and make sure the vision is seen through and all that. Go ahead, Wizard. What's up?
So Atreus was talking about Baldur's Gate before, so I looked it up. Baldur's Gate was released in 2020 for early access. The game was a full 6-year development. It clocks in right around $100 million, but because it was an early access, they had that drip of money coming in through the pandemic that continued to fund the production of the game. Spider-Man 2 on PS5 was $315 million, and that game sucked.
Wow.
Like, what the fuck, bro? Like, seriously, what the fuck? How do you... Almost $400 million, bro. Really?
That's a lot.
That's a lot of fucking money, bro.
That game.
Like, what are we doing?
For that much money. But Baldur's Gate 3.
They feel like they gotta up the ante every time. It's like, no, you don't.
It pisses
but
me
you
off.
can up the ante without upping your budget necessarily. Like if you're creative and you figure out ways to make a game truly spectacular, you could do that on a smaller budget. You don't need to.
That's what pisses me off with a lot of video
even when
games
you look at the entertainment industry in general, they have this insane mindset that if you spend X amount of dollars on this before and it was a hit, then you need to spend more. Like when you look at budgets, even like Marvel, DC, whatever, like Black Panther, the first Black Panther movie's budget was like what, $150 million, and then they went to Wakanda Forever and was like, yeah, so here's $300 million. It's like, bitch, no, the fuck we need $300 million for? Shit, you can't even remember half of the shit that happened in Wakanda Forever if you didn't watch it more than once. Same thing with Captain America, even though that worked until you got to 4. But you know what I'm saying? Just in general, movies in general, when you spend $100 million and it does well, okay, now we got to go 200. The John Wick movies, that was like 20 million on the first movie. Then they went up on the budget for each one after. It's like, nah, that's not necessary.
And to be fair, too, it is proven most of the time. I would say, Trey's fix your camera. Most of the time, I would say like 9 out of 10 times. 9 out of 10 times, you give a studio more money does not guarantee better creative output. If anything, it actually pretty much guarantees they're going to be lazier or they're going to just bloat themselves to the moon and just fucking essentially waste it. How many sequels have we seen, like you said, that get bigger budgets than their initial ones and they're just garbage, bro? Like garbage movies, garbage games. Like look at Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 has sold so far anyway about a little over 1/3. It's not quite at 1/2 of the original one, but it's a little over 1/3. It's getting close to 1/2 of the original with the PC release, so it's kind of pretty much right there. But still, even at 1/2, it still sold 1/2 of the first one, and it has a bigger budget of the second one. The second one has a bigger budget than the first one. So what are we doing? What's the third one going to be? Double the budget of the second one?
There's also an aspect of it.
They can't afford it.
There's also an aspect of it that could be a theory that we don't talk about, is that when you have a bigger budget, you're likely going to have more people, and that means a lot more personalities to manage, especially when you consider a post-Me Too entertainment industry. Because when you this time, instead of having one set designer, now you got 5, and now it's not enough. People don't just take paychecks and shut up anymore. Now everybody want their input in on it because they want to be able to say they was a part of something and they put their input on it. And so now you're being tugged in a bunch of different ways. A lot of people
hey. Tugged in a bunch of different ways. Relax,
he's getting
bro.
tugged.
Wait, why are you special guest? Get the fuck out of here. Why can't I move Rollo? There you go.
There we go.
What the fuck? My bad. All right, go ahead.
No, it's just saying that a lot of different people got their different opinions and stuff like that, and people don't take checks and just shut up no more. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people think directing is just you go in and tell everybody what to do, but no, part of being a director is you got to manage the personalities on set. I can only imagine how it is in an office with all of those egos and telling people how to make a video game or telling them what to put in the video game, and everybody wants their input in. I mean, every time a game comes out and it doesn't do well, everybody blames leadership, but nobody asks leaders, well, what the fuck were the devs doing? Man, these motherfuckers was in my damn security closet fucking the whole goddamn
why is all your stories with someone like fucking someone? I can't,
I'm sure y'all worked in the corporate office. It'd be some wild shit going on. Hey, matter of fact, somebody just posted a video not too long ago of 2 Walmart employees getting it bust down in the back of the parking lot. And I was like, imagine being a manager and you looking for 2 of your employees and you can't find them, and you got them on camera in the back of the parking lot just getting it on like crazy.
Yo, what is this profile picture, bro? Stop. What is Wizard? What are we doing? All right. Anyway, speaking
it's not too far off from the original, so I couldn't even tell.
It's really close.
Since we're talking about the layoffs, this is a big story. So I'm gonna make a video about this tonight because when I initially made a video about this, they got their funding pulled by Bethesda Softworks, the publishing side of things, and they had no idea what was gonna happen. They claimed that they were gonna lay people off. That was the idea. They were gonna lay people off. They had already started laying people off and trying to essentially save the company last minute. In that they were going to look for other investors and see what they could do. Within 24 hours, it went from that, what I just told you, to now the studio is being completely shut down, reportedly. That's pretty fucking insane. This is the level of bloodbath that we're experiencing here. Because even like it's not even just like Xbox directly necessarily doing it. It's the subsidiaries of Xbox killing off other studios that are working with those subsidiaries of Xbox, like Bethesda, for example. So Romero Games reportedly being shut down. That's pretty insane. Also, you also have ZeniMax, which I feel like ZeniMax's story is the other really big one, because they were making an MMORPG to follow up. You know, they're the ones who made Elder Scrolls Online, in case you're not aware. And they were working on another MMORPG. They've been working on it for a while. We're also in a world where MMORPGs are almost non-existent, at least new ones anyway. You know, few and far between, especially on a grand scale. And that game got canceled, which a lot of people were shocked by that one once they found that out. So what do you guys think about this? I mean, overall, this is pretty fucking crazy.
What games have they made? I don't know it off name recognition.
I forgot, to be honest with you. It says one Romero Games employee revealed that the company was closed and that everyone had been let go already, apparently. So already it happened within 24 hours of funding being pulled. That's how, just, you know, I'll look if somebody can look up their games and see what they've made, if they've made anything. This is how tight, I guess you could say, nothing worthwhile, you said?
Yeah, nothing worthwhile. I don't recognize any of these. 2017 they had Gunman Taco Truck.
Well, before that,
2019
Dangerous Dave. Sigil in 2019, Sigil 2. I never played the Sigil games. Empire of Sin.
How do they have 100 developers?
Hell if I know.
Subsidization. That's my point. Yeah. So what I was going to say is, this is how tight of a payroll and how tight of a budget these studios are operating on. That at any moment,
can you back up though? Did you say they got their budget approved and then the next day they got closed?
No, they've been like, so Bethesda Softworks, the publisher side of Bethesda, they had I don't know if it was contracted. If they did, it must have been a weird contract, but they were funding a project that John Romero was working on. Romero Games was working on a project published by Bethesda Softworks. They funded the project, or were funding the project. Not funded, because if it was funded, then them pulling out would not be a problem. They were funding it's okay. They were funding a project, and they pulled out the funding and didn't tell them that was going to be happening. Didn't tell them why. Well, obviously we know why with the layoffs, but they pulled out the funding, and because of that, they can't complete development. They also can't find funding anywhere else. It doesn't seem like they were even trying to, because again, this happened within 24 hours. It went from, we're going to try to find funding elsewhere and see what we could do to save the company, but we got to lay off people right now, to, well, actually, we're just going to close down. We have to close down, and everybody's being laid off.
That's crazy. I think that speaks volumes to the environment that games is in right now, and to your point of the imminent crash of gaming, because there are no investors that are willing to take chances on anyone right now. They're all just like, yeah, nope, we're good.
I think the ZeniMax example is actually the really good example of that, because when you look at, by most accounts, Elder Scrolls Online is very successful. I think it's made $2 billion in the last 10 years or so. You know, ZeniMax obviously has done a good job of taking the Elder Scrolls IP and making it into something and not running it into the ground like a lot of other companies when they inherit an IP. So from all accounts, they were profitable. They already have an IP that's making revenue. So of all the companies that kind of got hit with these layoffs, it was really surprising, because it's like, here's a company that's actually sustaining itself. And once you have an MMO that already has a good base, good gameplay, it's just coming out with the new content. So it's not like you're in constant development of a new title. So, you know, they kind of gave themselves the leeway to try to make something new. And it looked like, honestly, what they were going to come out with was trying to fill the void of what Destiny 2 has kind of like left there, that it was going to be an MMO looter shooter, third person with movement that's, you know, comparable to something like a Warframe. And so I could see how that had potential. I know that one of the things they were trying to do was, I think Microsoft, after what happened with Halo Infinite, might be averse to companies making their own game engines now, because that's one of the things that killed Halo Infinite's development cycle. It was they couldn't get the slip space engine working well for a long time. They wasted issues, and that's why Halo Studios was switching to Unreal Engine 5. So I wonder if after what happened with all that, Microsoft is like, here's an MMO. It's not going to come out until 2028. Yes, these guys are making money, but we could just refocus the team to keep pushing Elder Scrolls Online, which is basically just a cash cow. That's minimal effort. So let's just not even take the risk on this with something that if they run into complications because they're building it completely from scratch, that we don't have to deal with it, even though Phil Spencer supposedly played, a vertical slice. There's that word again in February, and he loved it. So corporate was probably just like, no, we're not going to even take any risks at all, even though this is kind of a safer bet because this company's at least making money on the side, so they're almost financing themselves.
Right.
But,
and the guy behind this studio, I mean, this guy's fucking well known, man. He's not like
Romero,
this is the guy who put Doom on the map.
A genre.
He did the zombie genre.
So like, if you're pulling funding from this guy, like, who the fuck do you trust at this point? It's kind of a crazy story.
And I think if I were any company that works with Microsoft now, first of all, if you're thinking about selling and you don't just want the bag, like whatever, I don't care if they sell off my company after I sell it out. Like, I just want to make my bag. A lot of companies are not going to want to work with Microsoft now. They're not going to trust them. Part of why they did the layoffs last year was to try to get themselves in a position to finance a lot of these other projects. And that's what the leadership at the time said. Yeah. They said, look, we're going to downsize the company and refocus on our projects that we've got that we think are sure bets. And now here they are a year later. And it's like, well, that was total bullshit. So if you're a developer, you can't trust them. I want to know, I'm curious. And the one thing that we probably will never get, and this is what insulates Microsoft, is Game Pass has created a cultural shift in the way that Microsoft thinks about things.
Right.
So it's also going to change the way that games are developed, because now everybody knows. And as an Xbox, gamer, you think to yourself like, well, I'm never going to pay $70 again, especially now if they're telling me the games are going to be $80. I'm just going to get it on Game Pass, and I can cancel my Game Pass subscription a month later. So you can't look at, well, it's an $80 game. What are the metrics now for the success of the game? Or now we have to have recurring revenue. So every game has to come out in a half-finished state, not just because the industry sucks, but now we're really incentivized to do that because we're not going to make that much off the sale on Game Pass. But if we sell DLC, even if it's on Game Pass, you still have to pay for it.
Game Pass is the Faustian deal of the video game industry.
Yeah.
Game Pass is the undoing of like gaming as we know it. Like, we should really not be supporting that as gamers.